Hi, she's Trixie and I'm Sarah, and this is our Yarn World, a place where we come to share the love of yarn crafts and almost any craft really. We just focus in on yarn crafts, but no matter what you do, we invite you to spend some time with us today to talk about crafting just as a whole. We are just two people trying to reach out to the YouTube community that has this section of just inventors and crafters and people that spend time working with their hands, as we don't really have that many people to share it with here where we live.
Right.
And like Mom and I were talking about this the other day, how in other places it's like a cultural pastime, like especially in like, I want to say it's like Norway, where they have like full town celebrations where the whole town knits for the day. No matter where you're going, you see people that knit while they walk, or crochet while they walk, or yarn craft like needlepoint. They have it where it's like no matter where you're going in cafe shops and stuff, it's a celebrated activity and an event. And I'm just sitting over here being like, that would be so cool.
Be so cool,
but that doesn't exist where we live.
You can do it in the car while you're riding along, or you can do it in your chair while you're watching TV. But that's about or you're watching YouTube and listening to all the great crafters out there.
Yeah,
I love that too.
We live in Michigan, and there's someone that we watch that lives in New York that does it for a living. She makes patterns for a living and stuff. So she's always knitting, always having a craft. And she's always trying to keep up with all of the like shawl longs or whatever that's going on, because she's trying to also promote other designers just as much as they promote her stuff. It's good publicity, everything. And she's always doing sock patterns very specifically, and she has a bag that is designed to knit as you go, and it's like either an arm bag that goes over her forearm that holds the yarn while you're knitting, and it just is always going, or like a backpack that has holes designed for it, and then a side pouch that's designed to put your craft away if you need to. And so you see her vlogging, walking the streets of New York City while she's just knitting.
Or riding the subway. Just
no shame in her game. I love it so much. Not that I'm insecure as being a crafter, but it's just not that it's taboo, because that would be
she's dedicated.
It's not that it's taboo. It's not like there's anything to be shamed about it, and there's nothing inherently wrong about it. It's just the lack of... She doesn't care about the social norms.
Right.
It's nothing wrong. It doesn't hurt anybody, and she's going to do with her time as she pleases.
Yep.
And she's not going to waste it.
Yeah.
And because this is something she loves so passionately, she's going to do it no matter what. And, you know, it was just something about that is just so inspiring. And I would aspire to that level of just like, I just don't care what you think. I'm just going to do it.
She does it in the movie theaters when they go to the movies, and she does it in the restaurants when her husband takes her out.
I'm sorry for
I think it's so
That's
cool.
just amazing. It just is so cool. And of course he has no problem with it because it's a form of income. They're not going to argue about it. And it's not like she's made to do it. It's not like she's like, you know, barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen sort of a thing. This is her passion, and he's supportive. But we don't have that. That's what you guys are for us, is our weekly outlet to be able to connect with other crafters. And, you know, Mom and I both have a mild crafting in wood burning that we have both celebrated, as my father is much more of a wood craftsman, sort of a person. And so we have burned stuff for him and because of him. And so it's not like we're just here for one craft. At any point we share a whole bunch of plethora of stuff, but today, obviously, as the channel is called Yarn World, we have some interesting things to share and some finished products.
Yes, so cool.
Some wearables. I know I tend to go on a tangent about that, but I don't know. We obviously are much more yarn focused because that is our much more practiced hobby, but it does not mean that we are limiting anything, as anything that we craft, we're going to end up explosively sharing, and you know, you're just not going to get away from it if you're watching our channel.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I made another blanket, and it only took me 4 days, and I don't know why. Maybe it was because of the way I was doing it.
Oh my god.
But okay, I did it in blues and browns, but
She had
the dark brown all the way to the light brown, and the light blue all the way to the dark blue, and that's how I made the blanket.
Okay.
So it is. I was so excited about it. I got it done in 4 days.
For anyone that's new or anyone that might not have catched what she was meaning by that, she always doubles up on her yarns when she makes blankets. So there's always 2 active working colored yarns in her blankets. So what she pretty much did was, on one side she started with lighter colors of the one color, so blue, let's say blue is this hand, and lighter colors of the other color being brown. They both started at one end. By the time they were being worked, she gradually darkened the blue as it was going up to meet the lighter brown.
Yeah.
But the lighter brown being at this end, she started with the darker brown with the light blue to make it so that by the time it reached dark blue, it was light brown.
Yeah.
And I think that just motivated her to be like, no, I want to see this done. And it turned out really cool.
Yeah. So we'll start with the light blue first and the dark brown.
So,
And-
yep, light blue and dark brown.
And then it just gradually, the colors switched. So now we're down to the
And
dark
tone.
blue and the lightest brown.
And now from light brown to
Just all the way through.
till it was a lighter blue and a darker brown at the end. It's just so cool.
And yeah,
She just went for it.
that was fun.
That
But I didn't do any of the quilting. I did buy some backing material. I am thinking about how I'm going to do the back. I do have, my tax lady offered me a long arm machine and the ability to teach me how to do it. But she wants to wait until tax season is over, and I'm not sure if I want to wait that long, or do I? Because really,
Because you could do
I could-
all the insides with all that.
yeah.
All the diamonds. With the lace.
I
Is
could
that
do.
what you want to do?
What I would do is just get it all quilted on her long arm, and I wouldn't have to worry about some small hole of my sewing machine, not the throat of my sewing machine, trying to put a king size quilt through there, 3 layers of it. I can't even imagine that. But when my husband brought that up, she's like, he asked, how much do you charge? And she said, Trixie, do you want to learn? And she says, I am willing to teach you, and you can do it yourself. And she says, and it won't cost you a dime. And I'm like, whoa. And she says, the only catch is I would wait until tax season is over with so I can teach you well. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
When is
So-
the end of tax season?
April 15th. So I don't know, because I really want it done and over with.
I think he's coming in March.
Oh, see?
You don't have to.
Um,
You don't have to have it done by then. I'm just letting you know. I do believe James said he's either coming in March or April. He said it was one of those 2. Depending on the time, it might not be a big
see,
deal.
but even if I waited for her and I did it that way, he will be coming back in August for Olivia's birthday.
No matter what.
And that's a year from the date that he
Ordered
started this whole thing in the first place, handed me a $200 check and said, this is going to get you started to get the materials. I can name my price on the quilt after I'm done with it. And if I do this on a long arm and learn how to do that, it's it's going to be a more professional look, I think. And so I'm really debating. I think that I might wait and do that and get taught to do that. Now it might be the only one I ever do, but at least I can say that I did it. And there's a lot of things that I can say that I did. You know, I've had a book published. I've been able to do all kinds of things, and I can say that I did them. And that might be one of them. So, and she says not to put anything together. Don't pin anything together. It's 3 layers. She said have everything separate, because you put them on the rollers all separate, and then it all quilts together. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the easiest way in the world. I wouldn't even have to sit there and pin it together. So I'm like, yeah. So I might actually do that. It's really considerate of her to do that for me and to teach me how to do that. And, you know, I can bring my own thread and she can teach me, and it won't matter how long it takes me, because this is not something she does to, it is something she does to make money every once in a while, but she doesn't always have clients. I mean, she does all kinds of stuff to make money. Mm-hmm. So if her teaching me is another skill I can learn, I think that may be the way I go.
Just for reference, our tax lady is a family friend. She is a prior agent of H&R Block that left H&R Block because she, in her convictions, did not feel comfortable with some of the things that her specific branch was having her do. She did not feel comfortable. Not saying that the whole institution is wrong, but she said that there were things that just made her very uncomfortable about it. But because there are ways of doing it online, she wanted to help her family friends to be able to have that help. So now she has over 500 clients. That
She's at 1,000 now.
Oh, over 1,000 people that just send in their work, and she just pushes it through. She helps them with it for free or for whatever they're willing to offer.
For a donation or for whatever amount.
Yeah, but she says she gets a lot of peace knowing that she's using her knowledge in the right way.
And she can stay home with her kids.
And she can stay home with her kids. And amazingly enough, for offering to do it for free, she ends up getting a major income from it.
Yeah.
And obviously she does more than just that. She's a very, very smart, intelligent lady. Like Mom just said, her passion is quilting. She has thrown her life into it, and she has won many pageants.
And we were in a quilting bee with her at one point in our lives.
She is a very, very driven woman, has made some of the most beautiful quilts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Her elephant one is just,
yeah,
it's intensely intricate.
Yes.
And she has put a lot of her life's work into her crafts, and so she gets what we do.
Yeah.
And she's just, you know, she's just very driven. So I just want to air that. Not saying there's anything wrong with any of that, just more of a reference.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, to be friends with your agent is not necessarily something that you can say every day.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
She's always done well by us.
To be in our quilting bee with us, and I've been on retreats with her, and just knowing the talent that she has is just special to me. And for her to offer that to me, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is going to be great.
Mm-hmm. For finished projects for me, well, I finished the
sweater vest.
Sweater vest. There we go. Look at that. One of our brains are working right now. I didn't have the long sleeve button down that is supposed to be paired with, where I'm supposed to wear that and put this over it to make it look like a cohesive outfit. The other way that they had suggested to pair it was with a long sleeve, or not a long sleeve, like a white t-shirt, but like have it, or like a solid t-shirt that would complement it. Oh, okay. Mom just said something to me. She wrote something down for me. They said like a white t-shirt underneath would look good. like a loose fitted one, not a tight fitted one. And I saw what they were saying with the model that was presenting it, and it looked well. I just didn't have something that I thought was going to pair well with it. So I wore it with just like a really fitted white t-shirt. This is actually my Beatles shirt, one of my Beatles shirts, Help. But I paired it with one of my black blazers. And here, I'll stand up. And I will take off the blazer, but I would say it turned out rather well.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of room to back up. Okay, you can see in frame. But please pardon me for the shirt choice. I recognize it's not meant to look like this. Like I said, I didn't have something to pair well with it besides the blazer. But of course, this is how it turned out. And I recognize that there might be some errors in the tightness of the collars, the arms, and the brim at the bottom, because it was supposed to be paired with a needle size for the bigger knits on the body. It was supposed to be a very specific ratio, and I went above that, so some of the tightness and the way that it's being bunched up is a little bit more than was intended.
Okay.
So like the back is a little bit more puffy than was intended. I don't think it looks bad, but it's not as it was intended because I didn't have the right size needles.
Right.
But I still think it turned out pretty well for the design.
I do too.
And paired with my blazers, because I was looking at all my blazers that I have. This is the one that paired well with it. I think it definitely is going to look well, depending on whether I keep it or I sell it. I just made sure I had an undergarment shirt to be able to wear it underneath it, because I wasn't going to wear it bare in case I did sell it. Obviously, I want to be able to wash it and stuff, but I wanted to be able to show it off, because I have someone in mind that might enjoy this.
Right.
And so I just figured I'd wear my wearable today as my finished project, and I think it looks pretty nice. I had some people already tell me it doesn't even look like I made it. It looks more store-bought, and I'm just like, well, that's the intention.
Yeah.
On the work that I...
Don't make no table. It
I'm
moves
so
the camera.
sorry. I just don't even think. I'm so sorry. I know that must be uncomfortable to some viewers. I am trying to get out of that habit. I got more done on the hat that I am working on, the brown one. So I have technically finished the body of the brown. I've already cinched it up, and I will explain that. But I'm already working on the black, so for anyone that is new, this is supposed to be a double layered hat. So I will be making this essentially from the bottom, and I will cinch it there and then stuff it inside and sew the tips together, and that way it's a reversible hat.
Yeah.
But it'll be black on the inside or on the outside, no matter where you have the color, what side you have showing. It'll be interchangeable, but it also will always be double layered. The customer that I have for this has requested that very specifically because they are balding and they never have a hat that's ever long enough, and I thought I made this pretty decent size and never thick enough. And so that's where I'm going with it.
And having it double colored like that, you can pick a color for the jacket you're wearing and have a hat to wear with it. So
yeah.
That's awesome.
I was just thinking about the fact that, black goes with scale, gray scale color code. So grays, blues, coal colors. And then you have brown. That does go with blue too, but depending on the palette, it goes better with suede, a warmer orange,
Leathers.
leathers. Most traditional leathers that are not black, because it would go with the black.
Right.
But I'm thinking like green, just things
Yeah.
like that are much more earth tone
Yeah.
than stone tone.
Yeah.
Not that stone isn't earth, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, when you saw it last, I was still working in this going down. The needles are still going in the same direction. I just changed colors. So what I did up here was I actually used a double pointed needles on my end, because last week when I showed it to you, this was curling. This side was curling inward because it hadn't been blocked or anything. And what I did was I had double pointed needles. Now this is a 100 cast on a size 5mm circular hooks with worsted weight yarn, so 4-ply weight yarn. I picked up stitches of 100 stitches, but I had double pointed needles, so I did 25 per needle, so 4 needles. And my last needle, because I had a 5 pair double pointed set, and I decreased at the beginning and the end of each row. So the beginning of the row I knitted 2 together, and at the end of the row I did a slip knit, so that the angles of the decreases would always be facing inward on each other, and it would look cleaner. And I would say
It looks really good.
it looks rather clean. That's the decrease right there. And I did it 4 times, so there's 4 different points in which it goes in, and I did it each row for 7 rows, I do believe. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I do believe it's either 6 or 7. I wrote it down for myself, and I did it every single time because I made it as long as I needed to, and then I did the bare minimum with the decreases because I didn't want it to be necessarily a fitted beanie. I wanted it to be a little bit baggier just because I wanted there to be room for him to pull it over his head if he really needed it to bury his
over
head
his ears
and stuff. And so I wanted to just pretty much be a tube and then just an instant decrease, like almost like caving in a box, just for his sake. But I did it enough until there was enough stitches left on all the needles where if I pulled them through, it would tighten to barely needing to be crisscrossed over or having to fill in the gap. I did crisscross over the hole just so that there wasn't going to be a gap, but 8 stitches, 8 times 7, that
56.
is 56. So I took about a little bit over half of what was on the needles originally off with those rows. So by the time there would only be 56, so 44 needles, 44 stitches left to pull and tighten. I cut off the yarn and the working yarn, and I just put it on a yarn needle, and I just picked up the stitches, and then I just pulled tight and cinched it, and I think it did pretty well. And so now these are markers to tell me how many rows I did, excluding the decrease. It was 60 rows I worked on. So I'm going to do the same with the black, and then I'm going to decrease the same so it can punch in. Now, is there a possibility that you're going to see just a little bit of the black or a little bit of the brown?
I don't think that matters.
Right at the tip, right at the seam where it folds in. You might, because it's not going to be perfect, because if the intention was to have one color be the inside, I would have that be less than deliberately.
Right.
But because I want this to be a reversible hat, there's going to be a chance that it slightly shows on the brim. I don't really think it's going to matter.
I think it's cool.
And I'm considering putting like one of those leather tabs, double-sided tabs, right at the point in which the needles complete around, just so that you don't see the little bit of the stare effect of where one row stops and the other one ends with the color change. like put like a flap of leather right there and then sew it on, because a lot of fashion hats have that little tag, and I think that that might make the hat look a little bit more intentional, to be able to see the inverted, and it would allow for one spot to be a little bit more seam, right on the seam, to try to keep the hat in place possibly. So I'm considering that, and there's other things I'm considering doing for the sake of the wearer's ability did not have either color be equally represented, but that depends on how it works out. So I will tell you what I end up doing, because I don't want to just brainstorm and then it not be what I do. I feel like that might be pointless, because I was thinking about going up one seam of stitches on both sides parallel to each other and sewing it right against each other, like on both sides, or right at the points of the decreases, right down, and sewing it on both the black and the brown, so that no matter how you flipped it, it would be perfectly laying on itself, because it would be right against that whole entire lined row. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That would be cool too.
Because that would allow it to stay flat.
Yeah.
But I want it to be a little stretched, and I don't know if that's going to take the elasticity away.
Right. That might.
Not that those 25 other rows in between wouldn't make up for it, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't want it to be a tension point where it's going to hurt the tension of the hat and the knit. So I have things I'm trying to figure out. But I will keep going and see how that turns out. There's no pattern for this hat. I'm just making it up as I go along. So this had a pattern, and I will tag it. We'll tag it in the description. I followed someone's pattern, and if you do it exactly as they say, you're not going to have the same flaws that I did. But because I did not have the right size needles, I did what I had with what I had. None of the crafting stores in my area had the needles that I needed. I tried everywhere. They didn't have them. And so I would have had to take an Amazon order to try to ship it to me, or from a crafting store online, and I didn't want to do that. So I chose my route, and I think it still turned out pretty nice. But I don't know. It's been nice working on wearable stuff. I was also considering bringing along the fact that I got an order to make a doily that's very specific sized, and I ordered a vintage doily pattern from a company online that is trying to keep vintage doily designs alive.
Well, that's awesome.
And they were put on a PDF file so that they would stay alive.
Yay.
And not just stay on paper that would dissipate over time, like in newspapers and stuff, where these things would be normally
it degrades.
Published.
Yeah.
So they have them, and I found one I really like, and I bought it, and I have yarn for it that I have collected from my yarn stash. About a 2 3-weight yarn that I'll be using a smaller hook size on. I'm considering whether I want to go smaller, because it depends on how large these squares turns out. So they're squares that I will be sewing together for a bigger doily. That's the design. But depending on how big it turns out, I might go smaller so that I can make this as intricate as possible to meet the size.
Oh, that's awesome.
Before I block it.
Yeah.
So there's that on top of the ponytail hat that I have to make after this. So there's some things I will be working on and sharing with you guys as I keep moving along.
Yeah.
But Mom found a very fun verse.
Yeah, this is going to be kind of different from what we usually do, but we both have reasons why we're doing it this way. So the verse today is, God places the lonely in families. He sets the prisoners free and gives them joy. And that's found in Psalms 68:6, New Living Translation. So, God places the lonely in families. He sets the prisoners free and gives them joy. I had heard this. Somebody else on YouTube had said this verse, and then they said that it meant communities. God places the lonely in families. He puts people in communities. He puts them in families. He puts them in a unity. And I just thought, oh wow, isn't that kind of what YouTube is? We're trying to make community with you, and anybody who's lonely out there can work along with us or watch us and see what we're doing, or and we're trying to include you as much as we can, even in the comments. Just, you know, when you guys comment, I'm trying to comment right back, or as soon as I can see it, and sharing it with Sarah, and she's coming up with answers too, and we're trying to build a community, a family through YouTube with you. And whether you're lonely or you're not lonely, it was more of the fact that we can become a family or a community unit through what we're doing. And Sarah wanted to talk about the second part of this verse, so I'll let her continue on with that.
God places the lonely in families, and he sets the prisoners free and gives them joy. She talked about what she got out of the first half. He sets the prisoners free and gives them joy. First thing that came to my mind is the whole God is a just God. So, you know, he's a just God and he's a merciful God at the same time. We in our little, you know, finite brains cannot necessarily comprehend something that does not take place in time and space, that we understand the laws of science and physics, but him being outside of that kind of changes the reality of what that means. And, you know, it talks about how vengeance is his and his alone, and he's a jealous God, and just all these different things. And I think about the fact that, you know, he sets the prisoners free. A lot of people will think, oh, he's just going to set the prisoners free. How is that peaceful? How's that? I think we always assume that people are in jail. We always assume why they're in jail. We base it off of actions. And this might be a metaphor for, you know, injustice, maybe. You know, people that were never meant to be in jail. But even people that do incredibly horrible things and need that separation from society because they're not safe to themselves or people. They're a prisoner to themselves, to their minds, to not being able to have the peace.
Or even we could do that too. I mean, we can get trapped in our own thoughts and our own mind too. So
yep, I was actually just about to go there.
Yeah.
Just the nature of, you know, we can be prisoners in our own minds and our own space, and we limit ourselves into what is our own bodily autonomy, or our autonomy in our thoughts, to what we say, what we do, and just as much as you can think that you are entitled to it, you're always entitled to what you want. Or, let me rephrase that, because that did not come out correct.
Right.
You are entitled to thoughts and opinions and things that are genuinely yours, like your body. God gave this to you. What you are not entitled to is people's thoughts, people's emotions, and people's bodies. So that's separate from you. And when that's taken advantage of, whether it be by manipulation, whether it be by actions against you, or the way that you were raised, nature over nurture, you're stuck. You're stuck in a headspace, or even in a reality, a physical reality, in which you are imprisoned to whatever comes next.
Yeah.
I even think about, I don't know if you've ever read or watched, this is either a movie or a play wherever you are, or obviously literature, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo is a classic story about the French Revolution explained in the through the eyes. Okay, the main narrative is explained through the eyes of a prisoner that was sentenced to, I want to say it was 19 years in prison for stealing a loaf of bread for his family. Just because of France's God complex at the time. Now, England had a God complex at the same time, but it's that whole aspect of when we get to a point where we want to wage a moral war over other humans because we feel that we are interpreting the Bible better or have more license to it because of skin color or anything.
Yeah.
Or
that gets to be a thing too.
The pastor I was listening to Sunday was talking about how a lot of the times we have this ability to think that we have prejudice over types of sin, where it's like, well, I at least can understand this sort of sin because I've done it as well, but your sin I can't handle. And it's like you almost get into a mindset where you think you sin better, or you think you sin cleaner, sin less stinky, or less less opposing or obscene. And it hit me because it's like we get into a complex of thinking that at least if we sin, we do it better than other people.
They're claiming that sin. Oh my gosh, that sin is sin. And God does.
And I understand that, but what I'm saying is that when we have a God complex and we wage it over other people, we then think that we know better than God.
Oh my gosh. And
please understand, the Bible is supposed to be a tool to be able to better understand God.
And to see ourselves. It's like a mirror that we can see ourselves in.
But we can only grasp what it can show us.
Right.
What it shows other people, people form different theologies, people form different understanding based off of their worldview, whether it be a collectivist culture or an individualist culture, or whether it be a different political realm where we live in a much more democratic republic, or whether you live in a much more socialist republic or anything. This will affect you differently because God's going to speak to you and the way that it matters.
Right.
To you. What a concept. God isn't superficial. And there's that level of sometimes, I just had this image. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this, but there is this cat. I guess this cat that the owner had the cat crate. And the cat was so trained to be in the cat crate that when the cat's owner took off the top to the cat crate, when they opened, the cat was begging to go inside because it had something in it, and they opened the door and the cat went inside, and when they shut it, the cat genuinely didn't think it could get out because it didn't look up.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes the prisoners, when we feel imprisoned, it's because we don't give ourselves the ability to look up.
Right.
And I just want you to know, when you look up at God and you recenter yourself, the storm isn't going to matter. It doesn't matter that you're walking on the sea if you're focused in on Him. It's not going to matter whether you are going through a severe situation. I'm not saying that that situation does not matter. What I'm saying is that if you're going through something and you focus in on what God's trying to give to you, and that's going to look different to anybody, but if He gives you an anchor and He tells you, hold on to that.
Yeah.
I am your rock and your foundation. I will keep you stable even if the storm is howling and trying to push you off the mountain. If you take refuge in me, everything's going to be okay. Chains will fall off. and
Joy will come back.
and you will be able to have joy. I was once preached to, and I do feel that this is true. You can obtain happiness on your own to some extent. Everything is given by God, even air. But there's this nature of happiness is something that man can pursue, but joy is something that is God-given.
Yes. Yes.
To be enjoying something, to have enjoyment,
To rejoice.
to have joy, is something that is almost a spiritual happiness. It's deeper. It's not as superficial, if that makes sense. Because it lasts longer.
Yeah.
As a greater reaping. And I'm not saying you have to go through something horrible to be able to receive something. Because it's going to be impactful to you when you... It's the same as if you're a slave to the thorn in your foot. It's always going to be there until it gets taken out.
Right.
It's going to be just as powerful and just as relieving.
Yeah. You will feel free once it's gone.
And these are the things. You have bitterness. Forms of imprisonment that are not physical imprisonment would be like bitterness, jealousy, lack of truth,
lack of trust.
Lack of trust, deceit. That's what I was trying to say, not lack of truth. Deceit, harboring and unforgiveness. And I'm going to say one more thing before I keep going. One of the reasons why I say that is just because there are ways that you can learn to forgive what's happened without reconciling. To forgive does not mean that you have to go back to that person or have to have that person in your life.
It frees you.
It frees you from having to live with it.
Right.
If you want that to be a chapter that is done, you have to be able to move on to the next chapter. And if you're so focused on the last one, you're not going to be able to move on.
Right.
Or if it's a part of your life that you don't want to continue adding to, the only way to get a new journal is to shut the old one. There's an aspect of it's within your power to stop.
Yeah.
Enabling the power.
Right.
To have a hold on you.
Right.
And once you're able to grasp that, once God shows you how to have that operating in your life, no matter how it is, whether you're in physical imprisonment or whether you're in a domestic violence situation, whether your needs are being neglected, your emotional needs are being neglected, your ability to voice, your ability to feel heard, recognized, valued, however that is, please know God places the lonely in families.
Yes.
He sets the prisoners free and gives them joy. Again, the passage is Psalms 68:6. I would encourage you to take that into full grasp. Mom was talking to me about what the verse was before and what the verse was after, and it gives you a little bit more clarity as to why that verse is so powerful. Because on alone is powerful, but when you have the full grasp of what that chapter is trying to illustrate, what that passage is trying to amplify, it will give you more clarity as to how to operate in it.
Yeah.
As always, we're not theologians, we're not pastors, we didn't go to seminary. I do like to look into the Greek when I'm able. I did not do that with this, and I'm still very new at that, but I have been getting trained by a pastor friend of mine on how to do that, which I've been very grateful in. But I encourage you, take the passage as a whole. Get what God wants you to get out of that and apply it to your life. And if you take the time to practice that, you are going to go far. And I want to encourage you, if you ever need any sort of prayer, we always love your prayer requests. We are very sympathetic to your situations or hopeful in what you guys are believing to overcome or see happen. And I am always excited to see them. We respect privacy and understand that not everyone wants to air that sort of laundry, so please feel free to email us, and the email in the description down below.
If you want privacy.
And we're going to step away from this. For the person that asked me about making a tutorial about edging things, edging projects,
Janet?
I am going to do that video, but it's going to have to be different than this, than the format that we're doing our vlogs. It's going to be a completely different video. It's going to be a tutorial, and so we got to get the right camera angle and stuff, and I will be doing that. So I'm thinking it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. It won't happen even this week, but probably in the next 2 weeks we'll see it happen. So I'm just letting you guys know that. We love you guys very much.
Yes.
I'm not trying to be abrupt. We've been enjoying talking, but my son just woke up and he's knocking on the door. So we're going to have to shut off sooner than later.
And if you guys hear the lullaby music in the background, it's because he's on the other side of this wall.
Okay, do you want me to go grab him?
So
Okay.
He listens to his lullaby music, and we're just on the other side of this wall. So I wanted to mention that for the last couple of weeks. So we love you guys, and we want to wish you good health and good stitching. And she's coming back, and we're going to do our tagline. Poor little Canyos.
Sorry about that, everyone. I do love talking to you guys, and I'm sorry that today was cut. Well, we're not really cutting short. It's 56 minutes. All right.
46 minutes.
46, yeah. We love you guys. We can't wait to talk to you next week. And as always, we hope that you stitch your way
To mental health.